What's up, everybody? David Johnson back with another video for Building the Overman. We're going to entitle this video, The Day That I Sold My Soul. I haven't been here for a couple weeks, been MIA. Probably didn't notice, probably didn't care. Reason being, I've kind of been struggling with some depression issues. Now, normally it's not my style. I'm not a fan of kind of airing one's issues out in public, so to speak. I know that's the modern virtue, to admit your weaknesses to the world and embrace them, because I too am human, blah, 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 blah. I've never really had that mentality. Don't get me wrong. If I have some shit going on, I of course share it with my wife. I might share it with a close and personal friend here and there. I personally just don't see the value in putting it out there for the entire world to see. To me, at least, it kind of equates to pissing and moaning and whining, if you will. We all obviously have problems. The goal is deal with your shit and figure it out, at least in a perfect scenario, which is why I usually kind of keep that stuff close to the chest, if you will. But I found this topic interesting enough. I'm going to put it out there. Over the years, I've really kind of discovered, to be honest, the more transparent I am, the more I put my shit out there. It seems to do good with people. It seems to earn a decent amount of respect. So the question is, what was the root or cause of some of this depression stuff that I've been dealing with? And it's a lot of different things, but specifically what I want to talk about here is my training company, Team Warrior Within. This is the segment where I'm either going to piss off all of my clients and friends, or possibly even all my coworkers or whomever. I'm kind of at a point where I don't really care. The entire purpose of the Building the Overman thing originally was because my voice, my natural voice, is perhaps a little too boisterous and over the top at times for Team Warrior Within, simply because, it's a fitness company, training company, and that should really be our focus, more so than, cultural analysis, political, religious talk, all that crap. That's why I wanted to start this page, just to give myself an alternative springboard to talk about some of the larger concepts that interest me. But anyways, coming back to, Team Warrior Within, you got to remember that 2 years ago, there was no Team Warrior Within, it was just David Johnson Training. I started working as a personal trainer, I want to say in the fall of 2003. I really got into bodybuilding hard in the summer of 2012, or excuse me, 2002, and really devoted myself entirely. It wasn't much longer than a year's time, probably about 15 months before I got my NASM certification. I actually got my first gig working as a trainer. And of course, I was scared to death when I started doing it, but found pretty rapidly that not only was I good at it, but I really enjoyed it. And I did a lot of soul searching over the years to try to pinpoint, what it was that I loved about it so much, why it was so joyous for me. I already put out the one video on the Building the Overman site about reversing cause and effect. Not seeing the tie between the effort that goes into something and the something itself, and how, in my opinion, that almost always leads to a bad result, a bad emotional state, whatever the case might be. So, I had always been kind of enamored with bodybuilding growing up, watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and everything. But, as a little fat kid, always said I'd get in shape someday, so I tried as a teenager and I failed because I didn't know what I was doing. I tried again briefly in college, went to the gym really consistently every day for several months. Didn't see much change, again, because I didn't know what I was doing with nutrition and all of that. It wasn't until after college that I really started, making my metamorphosis. I really buckled down, read everything I could on nutrition and training and all that stuff, and kind of launched full blast in the fall of 2003. September 17, 2003 was actually the first day I started training. And I found something really interesting. I fell in love with it, with the actual training, not personal training, but working out, getting fit, and even like the hardcore dieting aspect. That first year I pretty much ran off exclusively, I'm not exaggerating, chunk light tuna fish and a couple apples every day. So I was basically on no carbs, no fats for the better part of an entire year, while moving furniture for a living and working out really hard in my basement for like up to 2 hours a day. And the entire joy of it for me was obviously, in part, seeing my body change. If my body hadn't been changing for the better, I don't think I would have stuck with it all that long. I mean, you're not getting a return on your investment. Why would you keep doing it? But I found pretty rapidly it wasn't primarily seeing my body change that motivated me. It was the hard work. And more specifically, it was the relationship between the hard work and the change. It was knowing that if I did X, Y, and Z, and I did it consistently, and I did it with all of the energy that I could muster and all of my focus, then it would very consistently lead to this end product. And there was a certain joy in that, first of all, in knowing that I was kind of the master of my own destiny on this front. The harder I worked, the better I would get. Would I ever be Mr. Olympia? Probably not. It didn't matter. I knew that I had direct control over, not just my mind, but my body. And that brought an immense joy to me. So then, about a year and a half into my journey, when I started working as a personal trainer, I started doing this with other people. And it was years later that I really pinpointed, that for me was the joy in personal training. I've talked about this with a lot of my clients, so you may have heard this story before, but, everyone says they become a personal trainer because they want to help other people, Personally, I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think anyone that says their main goal is to help other people is somebody that is so desperately lacking in their own fucking self-esteem that all of their joy is derived from feeling like they're doing a favor for somebody else. Some weak, sniveling coward. For me personally, most of my days throughout my life have been filled with people that, in my opinion, are just filled with excuses. Excuses as to why they're not living the way they would like to be living. Excuses as to why they're not pursuing the things that really matter to them, but are instead pursuing bullshit values that society is telling them they ought to care about, whether it's the wife and the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence, whatever. I don't think most people put enough independent thought into selecting their values, and I don't think they put enough efforts into actualizing their values and making their life be as kick-ass as it could be and ought to be, which again was kind of the entire impetus for this Building the Overman project. But I found when I worked with a client, let's say I got a 40-year-old female office worker or housewife or whatever who had been overweight for 20 years and she had her first kid, didn't have the greatest self-esteem, didn't have a real great self-image. Maybe her husband didn't look at her like he did when he first met her 20 years ago. And I found time and time again, excuse me, I'll say, found time and time again when I worked with an individual like that and really pushed them, didn't coddle them, didn't handhold them, but really kind of, threw them in the deep end, if you will, and made them embrace, hard work, a disciplined approach to nutrition, all that stuff. And I was always very upfront with them, like this is the expectation. If you want to achieve this goal, this is what you're going to have to do. And I found when they embarked upon that, if they stuck to the template, and, which when they did, they inevitably ended up seeing really good results, their attitude changed. They started developing a little more self-esteem, perhaps carrying their head a little bit higher, their shoulders back a little bit, looking you in the eye when you talk rather than looking at the floor. I really found the value in working with people wasn't transforming their bodies, but kind of transforming their spirit, if you will. And I don't mean that in any kind of religious, hokey-ass bullshit way. I mean, you were kind of giving them the gift of realizing they were in control of their destiny, like I realized with myself. They didn't have to be out of shape. They didn't have to have crappy self-esteem. They didn't have to be ignored by their husband. They could put effort into something that would bring about a legitimate value and make their lives better in a lot of ways. Not because they had fucking six-pack abs, okay? No one gives a shit. But rather because they could take themselves and transform themselves into something that was in their mind's eye, right? And that was a huge thing. So when I started doing this time and time again with people, I really found that I derived this insane, selfish joy from watching people kind of metamorphosize, not just physically, but spiritually, intellectually. And really, that was the kind of meaning behind the name Warrior Within. The tagline on my original David Johnson training t-shirts was seeking the best within you. Actually, before that, it was actually building a better body, building a bigger soul. So the focus was never on just building big muscles, but rather kind of an internal transformation that is oftentimes sparked by an external transformation. And it's funny, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the writings of Tony Robbins and other self-help gurus. Many of them say this too. You got to start by kind of taking care of your physical health and your appearance and your body before you can transform the spirit. because that's the easier part. Like if you can't drop 10 pounds and stick to a diet, how the hell do you suppose you're going to revamp your attitude or your outlook on the universe? It's not going to happen. So I'm not alone in kind of having this view. It's fairly common with a lot of these self-help gurus, but I really got to see it in practice, and I got to see how much it mattered to me. And with that, over time, I started to build a reputation. Most trainers, from what I've seen, are very scared of losing a client. In part, you got to remember, we're commission only. We don't have a base salary, don't have an hourly salary. And if you piss somebody off, either by pushing them too hard or by being too honest with them, like, no, your half-assed approach to dieting is not going to cut the fucking mustard, and you're not going to see your results, many trainers are afraid those people will quit, and many of those people will quit. What you have to remember is that those people, they quit because they weren't willing to accept reality. They quit because they couldn't handle facts, because they were so emotional and so emotive that they couldn't look at it from a mathematical perspective and say, I have this over here that requires, this investment, achieving this body requires sticking to this diet, sticking to this training, et cetera, et cetera. And I have this over here that I also like, pizza, burgers, and sitting on my ass. And they couldn't figure out which of those weighed more on the scale. They wanted both. So they got shitty and tried to find some magic little system. Went to a personal trainer. As a personal trainer, a lot of times if you're honest with that person, they can't handle it. Now, in my experience, the entire fitness industry, for the most part, is predicated on bullshit lies. Quick fixes, overnight transformations, just selling people this idea of instant results. And in my opinion, that's done for a very simple reason. It's hard to look at somebody and sell them on the concept of sticking to simplicity, discipline, and routine for an incredibly long stretch. And for anyone who's ever gotten in really good shape, that is what gets you in good shape. It's consistency and hard work over time. That's all it is, discipline. Nothing happens overnight, nothing happens quickly. Not when it comes to transforming your physique. So because of that, most of the fitness world is invested in selling bullshit. Whether it's the supplement industry, whether it's an ab belt, whether it's some new 5-minute cardio workout on a combo stepper / elliptical that supposedly burns 20 times the calories in the same amount of time. You've seen the infomercials, you get the point. It's all nonsense. And I always prided myself on never being a part of that system or that machine, always being brutally honest, totally upfront, letting people know this is the reality, this is what it takes to get in shape. Everything else that you're being sold is pretty much bullshit lie, right? So starting about 2 years ago, Nikki, my wife, came on board, started helping me run my company, which at the time was still just David Johnson Training. But we started to kind of expand, became Team Warrior Within, started taking on other trainers. And here we are 2 years later, give or take. The team is huge. We have a pretty large reach. We work with tons of people, 20 plus trainers, under the banner, all really good quality trainers. But because of that, I obviously can't micromanage as much as I used to. I've had to take a step back and not try to do every little thing for Team Warrior Within, whether that's, the social media posts, the blogging, the continuing education, all that stuff. I'm purposely letting a lot of other people have their own voices with it, which is part of the idea behind it. But, between how the direction that some of our marketing is going, the direction that some of our fan base is going, I'm not going to lie, I'm just personally not a fan. I personally think it's slowly starting to turn into the very bullshit fitness machine that I always fucking hated. And here I am sitting back watching my baby that I spent the last 12 years building with an intense amount of pride and integrity and honesty and passion. Almost working myself into an early fucking grave to establish the reputation that I've established, getting swallowed up by a Valentine's Day heart on Valentine's Day with the Team Warrior Within logo, getting swallowed up by hashtag my team is better than your team, getting swallowed up by all of the fucking nonsense that I have no desire to be a part of. Now I'm well aware of the fact that I already kind of have one foot out the door when it comes to all of this, meaning I personally am not a huge fan of where the entire industry has gone If you've ever listened to the podcast, I'm sure you're aware of this. I don't see it getting a whole heck of a lot better anytime soon, although I think it will over time. Once this new wave of circus clown fitness, rich piano bullshit kind of comes to an end, which it will. The levee will break on that front as well, and all trends come in cycles. But, the main thing for me is making sure that in no sense am I helping to support or promote that mentality. I want to be true to the idea of being transparent, upfront, and honest about what it really takes, to achieve your goals, get in amazing shape. What it is we do at Team Warrior Within that's kind of different from other teams. In my opinion, so much of that is just, not being bullshit artists, being totally blunt about the expectations. You're going to work harder than you've ever worked. You're probably going to suffer harder than you've ever suffered. But you're going to achieve an end product that you never thought was imaginable. So the question is what to do. I could let it all burn itself to the ground, and there's a part of me that's tempted to do that. That's kind of the reason I started doing the Building the Overman page. I needed a new outlet as I was starting to feel like Team Warrior Within was not my own anymore. I needed something a little bit racier, something a little more off the beaten path. And that, Building the Overman is helping to serve that function. But I still can't, as long as I'm a part of it, I can't let Team Warrior Within tread this path. And I'm not singling out any one individual in particular. All I'm saying is that I'm seeing some early warning signs of some trending and some trendiness that I personally can't say I'm a huge fan of. So I haven't figured out 100% what I'm going to do about it. I think you're going to see a slight return in the coming months to some slightly edgier material, some rawer material, some more honest shit, some legitimate educational stuff rather than just advertising. I don't want to just advertise and say, hey, our team is great because look, we have a Facebook campaign. Fuck that. Let every other douchebag shit fucking personal training company on the planet do that. I'd rather be poor. I'd rather have 2 kick-ass clients and be a fucking nobody, but sleep at night in my shitty house because I'm poor, knowing that I never sold out, I never sold my soul, I never sold my integrity, and I always retained sight of why this mattered to me and what I was trying to do. I'm well aware, I'm not going to revamp the industry. I'm well aware that this is some, self-righteous cause, if you will. But guess what? I'm the guy that has to live in my own fucking head. And I'm the guy that has to try to sleep at night, either being incredibly proud of what I've done or ashamed. And I'll be fucking goddamned if I'm going to do the latter, even if that means burning the company to the ground. So, that's where I've been these last few weeks. That plus a little sick. Just want to talk a little bit about where things are at and kind of the direction I'm hoping to push things in the coming months for anyone that's a member on the team or a fan of following what we do. I want to remind everybody that we are not a little pack of hashtaggy social media hookers. I want our contents to be quality. I want it to be legitimate, not fake. I want it to not be trendy. Fuck trending. You can keep your trending. I like being unpopular, always have. And that's where things stand. So a little bit about the day that I sold my soul, if you will. But now it's time to pay the price and buy it back because it wasn't worth the dollar I received. This is David Johnson, another episode of Building the Overman, the day I sold my soul. And you'll be seeing it come back very soon. Talk to you soon.